The world between worlds. A vast expanse of endless stars and swirling nebulae, where time and space converge. Within this mysterious realm, the Force weaves the threads of countless realities. Through its portals, we glimpse infinite possibilities, a galaxy where one decision can reshape everything we know. Here, in the world between worlds, we see the echoes of destiny fractured and reformed. The Force binds all living things, but in this place, it also reveals what might have been. Every portal opens to a galaxy far, far away. A galaxy familiar, yet wholly different, where the balance of light and dark shifts in ways unimaginable. Time, space, reality, the Force moves through all of it. And yet, even the strongest currents can be altered by the smallest moments. Now, we step into one of these realities to witness a galaxy shaped by a single choice. A place where history bends, futures collide, and the impossible becomes possible. And so, we are left to ask just one question. What if? Hello there, and welcome to What If Anakin Skywalker Died During the Jedi Temple Purge. Location, Coruscant, Jedi Temple. Time, 19 BBY. The rhythmic pounding of armored boots echoes through the streets of Coruscant, growing louder with each passing second. A shadowed figure walks at the head of the formation, his hood drawn low, his presence radiating an eerie calm. The Jedi Temple stands before them, silent, unknowing, doomed. At the base of the grand entrance, Jedi Master Jurok, the temple gatekeeper, steps forward. His expression is warm, though slightly puzzled. Skywalker! There's been a great disturbance. What's happening? Where's Master Windu? Anakin doesn't answer. The hum of a blue lightsaber igniting is the only response Jurok receives before Anakin's blade pierces straight through his chest. The Jedi Master gasps, his face twisting in shock and betrayal before he crumbles to the floor. The marching never stops. Behind Anakin, thousands of 501st clone troopers advance without hesitation, their blasters ready. The temple gates slide open. What was once a place of wisdom and peace is now about to become a battlefield. The temple corridors, once filled with the quiet hum of meditation and the laughter of younglings, are now drowned in the sounds of war. The rhythmic march of the 501st Legion is broken by the snap hiss of igniting lightsabers and the sharp crack of blaster fire. Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, strides forward without hesitation, his blade cutting down any who stand in his way. Jedi Knights and Padawans rush to meet the intruders, their sabers flashing in defense of their home. The first line of defenders, a group of Jedi Temple guards, ignite their sabers and charge. Blaster bolts light up the halls. Bodies fall. Screams echo through the sacred halls. A Padawan barely in his teens deflects several shots before Vader's saber cuts him down mid-spin. A Jedi Master, overwhelmed by sheer numbers, is struck by repeated blaster fire before collapsing. The clones show no hesitation. Their former allies are now nothing more than targets. In the archives, Jedi Master Jocasta Nu desperately tries to protect the temple's knowledge, sealing the doors behind her. Elsewhere, Sindralig and his students prepare for the inevitable battle. The slaughter has only just begun. Deep within the Jedi Temple, Council Master Shaak Ti sits in quiet meditation. The Force flows around her, guiding her thoughts until a sudden shockwave of darkness disrupts her focus. A heavy presence fills the air, cold and suffocating. The screams of Jedi and the thunder of blaster fire pierce the temple's walls. Her eyes snap open. She rises swiftly, her montrals twitching as she senses a battle unfolding outside. With measured steps, she moves towards the hall, her hand resting near her lightsaber hilt. As she steps into the corridor, the sight before her is chaos. Sindralik, the temple's battlemaster, stands at the center of a vicious fight. His green saber hums, expertly deflecting blaster bolts and cutting down clones with precision. But something is wrong. His opponent is another Jedi Temple guard. 3 other Temple guards lay lifeless on the floor, their golden masks now nothing more than shattered remnants of their former identities. The remaining guards, those still loyal to the Jedi, are locked in combat against one of their own. Shakti's gaze sharpness. "What is happening here?" she demands. The rogue guard, his stance firm and his double-bladed saber staff spinning, turns his masked face towards her. The 501st Storm is behind him, their rifles raised. The traitor's voice is cold, emotionless. "The Jedi have fallen, Master T. You should surrender." But surrender is not an option. With a flick of her wrist, Shakti's blue lightsaber ignites, its glow reflecting of the temple's walls. The battle is far from over. Shakti wastes no time. With a swift motion, she lunges at the rogue temple guard, her blue blade clashing against his yellow saber staff. The traitor is skilled, his movements precise, but he is outmatched. Sindralik presses forward, his saber slicing through the air with a deadly intent. The traitor spins, parrying both attacks, but for every strike he blocks, another comes fast. Shakti feigns left, forcing the rogue into Sin's path. In one fluid motion, Dralik's saber cuts straight through the guard's midsection. The traitor stumbles, his weapon clattering to the floor. He gasps, looking down at the mortal wound before collapsing beside the very Jedi he had betrayed. His golden mask rolls away, revealing the lifeless face of a warrior who had once sworn to protect the Order. Behind them, the remaining Temple Guards fight fiercely, cutting down the advancing clones with practiced precision. The 501st Troopers, despite their overwhelming numbers, struggle against the Jedi's superior combat skills in close quarters. Sindralik turns to Shakti, his breathing heavy. "He turned on us the moment the clones entered. Killed 3 of his own before we could stop him." Shakti exhales sharply, gripping her saber tighter. A Jedi betraying his own? It made no sense. Her mind races. Was this a coup? Had someone turned the clones against them? She knew Master Windu had taken a team to arrest the Chancellor. Could Palpatine have done this? But there's no time to question it now. She's the only council member left in the temple. The responsibility falls on her. The temple is under siege. The clones are still advancing. And they need a plan fast. Blaster fire and lightsaber clashes echo through the temple halls. But Shakti remains calm. She knows that panic leads to defeat, and right now, the Jedi need a leader. She turns to Sindralik, who is still catching his breath after the fight. "Sin, take the temple guards and retreat to the inner halls," she orders. "Narrow corridors will give us an advantage. The clones will struggle to overwhelm us in tight spaces." Dralik nods. "Understood, Master T. We'll hold them off for as long as we can." As Dralik rushes to rally his warriors, Shakti wastes no time. She moves swiftly for the temple, cutting down any clone troopers in her path. The archives are her next stop. If anyone can protect the younglings, it's Joe Castanu. When she enters the archives, she finds Joe Castanu standing at a terminal, frantically trying to lock down sensitive information. Several Jedi Knights are with her, lightsabers drawn, guarding the entrance. Joe Costa looks up as Shakti approaches. "Master T, what's happening? The clones, some of them turn on us, but others still follow orders." Shakti doesn't have time to explain everything. "Jocasta, we are under attack. You need to evacuate every youngling you can find." Jocasta's expression hardens. She may not be a warrior, but she knows what must be done. "I'll do what I can. Some Jedi Knights are still in the temple. I'll rally them to help me." Shakti places a hand on her shoulder. "Take them to the underground passages. If you can get them out of the temple, do it." Jocasta nods, then immediately begins organizing the evacuation. With the help of several Jedi Knights, she starts gathering any younglings she can find, leading them away from the battle toward hidden escape routes. Shakti watches for only a moment before turning back toward the chaos. She still has her own fight ahead. The Jedi Temple is falling, but not without a fight. The Jedi Temple burns as the battle rages on. The clash of lightsabers and the relentless sound of blaster fire echo through the once sacred halls. Shakti moves swiftly through the chaos, cutting down clone troopers as she advances deeper into the temple. Everywhere she looks, Jedi are being slaughtered. Bodies of knights, Padawans, and temple guards littered the corridors. The 501st Legion, with their overwhelming numbers and precision, are bringing the Order to its knees. But as she moves through the Grand Hall, something unusual catches her eye. Several Jedi bodies, but their wounds aren't from blasters. They are lightsaber wounds. Shakti's heart tightens. This wasn't just the clones. Had there been another betrayal? Her mind races. The temple guard from earlier had turned on them. But was he acting alone? Or was there something even worse happening? Then ahead of her, she sees a lone figure, a Jedi, fighting and killing fellow Jedi. A blue lightsaber flashes as the figure cuts down another Jedi. Shakti's blood runs cold. "Stop," she calls out. The Jedi hesitates, then slowly turns to face her. The temple's flickering lights cast shadows over his form, and his hood obscures his face. But as he shifts slightly, Shakti's sharp eyes catch something familiar. His stance, his presence in the Force. This isn't just any Jedi. She tightens her grip on her lightsaber and takes a cautious step forward. "Who are you?" The figure tilts his head slightly, then lifts his saber. The moment the blue glow illuminates his face, Shakti's heart sinks. Anakin Skywalker. Her mind rejects it. This couldn't be happening. Anakin would never. He was the hero of the Republic, the chosen one. Yet here he stands, lightsaber in hand, his face twisted with a cold, merciless expression. Shakti barely has time to react before Anakin lunges. Their sabers clash forward, sending sparks flying as they clash in the flickering temple lights. Their duel is fast, brutal. Shakti is a Jedi master, but Skywalker's aggression is overwhelming. She parries strike after strike, her mind still reeling. Why is he doing this? Their fight rages on, but soon help arrives. From across the hall, Sindralik spots the battle. His eyes widen as he sees Shakti fighting a Jedi. But then, as Anakin's hood briefly shifts, he realizes the horrifying truth. "No," Dralik breathes. Without hesitation, he rushes forward, flanked by 2 Jedi Temple guards. Shakti sees them approaching from the corner of her eye, but doesn't have time to acknowledge them. Anakin is relentless. Then, at last, Dralik and the Temple guards reach them. The duel truly begins. 4 Jedi against 1. And yet, deep down, Shakti knows Anakin Skywalker is more dangerous than any of them realize. The fight moves like a storm, sabers flashing, sparks flying, as Shakti and Sindralik struggle to hold their own. Yet, Shakti still tries. Even as she deflects his brutal, rage-fueled attacks, she calls out to him. "Anakin, stop this madness," she pleads, her voice strained as their sabers clash together once more. "Why are you doing this?" Anakin doesn't respond. His movements are precise, aggressive, and unrelenting. His blue eyes, once full of light, are now filled with cold determination. Dralik, panting beside her, manages to deflect a strike aimed for his throat before counterattacking, forcing Anakin back for only a brief moment. "Skywalker, this isn't you," Sin shouts, desperation creeping in his voice. "You swore to protect the Order. What have you done?" But Anakin barely acknowledges him. Instead, he lunges forward, his saber a blur of blue light. Shakti and Sin move together, using all their skill to stay alive. Their battle spills out of the Jedi halls and into deeper chambers of the temple, where towering archives and sacred Jedi relics now serve as obstacles in their desperate struggle. Lights flicker, columns collapse, walls burn. But Anakin is not tired. They do. His relentless onslaught pushes them further back, room by room, destroying everything in their path. With every strike, every parry, Shakti can feel her strength waning. Sin is breathing heavily, sweat dripping from his brow. Shakti is focused but exhausted, and Anakin stands before them, as if he had all the energy in the world. He tightens his grip on his saber, his cold expression never breaking. This is the end! With one final charge, the duel continues, and Shakti and Sin aren't sure if they can win. The battle rages on as the duel erupts into a massive hall, where chaos reigns. Blaster bolts tear through the air. Jedi and clones fight desperately around them, the ground littered with bodies. The temple quakes under the weight of destruction. Pillars crack, the ceiling groans, and flames spread through the ruins. But in the center of it all, the duel is reaching its end. Anakin strikes low, then high, and twists his blade. Shakti barely deflects, but she's losing ground. With a ruthless spinning strike, Anakin knocks one of her lightsabers from her hand. A second devastating blow sends the other flying across the hall. Before she can react, a powerful kick slams into her chest. Shakti crashes on the ground, the wind knocked out of her. And then, Anakin raises his saber for the final strike. This is it. But before he can bring the blade down, he stops, his entire body freezing in place, paralyzed mid-motion. His face twists in frustration, his muscles tremble. He tries to move, but he can't. Behind him, Sindralig stands, one hand extended, fingers curled into an unyielding grip, a rare, forbidden force technique. "I won't let you go, Skywalker," Sin growls. With his other hand, Dralig reaches out and pulls. A massive pillar wrenches loose from the crumbling ceiling, tilting forward with a thunderous roar. The ground shakes, dust and stone fill the air. The pillar begins to fall. Anakin's body trembles as he fights against the invincible hole. Then he breaks free. Without a moment's hesitation, he thrusts his lightsaber backward. The blade sinks into Dralig's gut. Dralig gasps, but he does not let go. With his last strength, he releases his hold on Anakin and pushes Shakti away. The force blast throws her backward, sending her rolling across the floor, far from the collapsing pillar. Now free, Dralig grips the falling column with both hands. With a final defiant pull, he brings it crashing down. Then he grabs Anakin, not letting him go as the blue blade still pierces through him. He whispers in Anakin's ear, "My Padawan, it's harder than you." Then, the massive stone crushes them both. Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, is gone. Dralig is gone. And Shakti, left breathless and shaken, can only watch as the dust settles. But the battle for the temple rages on. Shakti lays motionless, her body aching, her mind numb with shock. She could still hear the faint hum of lightsabers, the deafening blasts of blasters, and the cries of the dying. But all she could see was the massive rubble before her. Sindralig was gone, the battle master, her friend. Her mind reeled, trying to process what had just happened. And Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, the bright-eyed boy Qui-Gon Jinn had once brought before the council, the young man who had fought beside her during the Clone Wars, gone. The weight of it all threatened to crush her. But then, a bolt sizzled past her head. Reality snapped back into focus. The fight wasn't over. With a deep breath, she pushed herself up. Her legs felt weak, but her grip on her lightsaber was firm. The temple was still burning, and she wasn't done fighting. Shakti rallied what Jedi were left. With Anakin gone, the clones were leaderless. Their momentum faltered, but there were still thousands of them. For every Jedi standing, there were 100 clone troopers. The fight dragged on. The Jedi retreated deeper into the ruins of the temple, using narrow corridors and hidden passageways to even the odds. But eventually, the 501st broke through. They had Walker support, they had gunships, the Jedi temple fell. But Shakti had bought precious time, and it made all the difference. In the chaos, hundreds of Jedi managed to flee. With Jocasta Nu leading the way, the temple archives became an escape route. Tunnels and forgotten passages leading into Coruscant's underworld. Terra Sunubi and other masters used stealth and misdirection, guiding younglings to safety. By the time the temple was fully overrun, 400 Jedi had made it out. It was a miracle, but they weren't safe yet. They couldn't leave Coruscant, not yet. The planet was on lockdown. Clone patrols scoured the city for any sign of the Jedi. The clones were still searching, so they went into hiding. Deep beneath Coruscant, in the abandoned ruins of the Old Republic, a forgotten part of the city, buried beneath centuries of construction, no surveillance, no patrols. A place where light had not touched in 1,000 years. Here, the lost remnants of the Jedi Order gathered, bruised, bloodied, but alive. Shakti looked at the survivors, the knights, the masters, the children. They weren't beaten. Not yet. She clenched her fists. This wasn't the end of the Jedi. Not as long as she still breathed. As the Jedi Temple Purge raged on, the last remnants of the Jedi Order faced their final moments on Coruscant. In the aftermath of the galaxy-altering betrayal, Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi had managed to escape their respective battles, Obi-Wan having survived the chaos on Utapau, and Yoda, the wise leader of the Jedi, found each other on the desolate moon of Polis Massa. Their reunion was filled with sorrow, but also a quiet determination. The galaxy was on the brink of darkness, and they knew they had to act quickly. Together, they made their way back to Coruscant, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of the devastation that had already unfolded. When they returned to the Jedi Temple, the battle was already over. The temple was silent, eerie so. The clones had been victorious, and the Jedi Order had fallen. Yoda and Obi-Wan made their way into the temple's inner sanctum, their minds racing as they tried to piece together what had happened. They found the security recordings that told the story of Anakin Skywalker's betrayal. The holograms revealed the horrific truth. Anakin, once their hope, had turned against them. His fall to the dark side was captured in chilling betrayal, but even more shocking was what they had discovered next, Anakin's final moments. They watched in disbelief as Anakin fought against Shakti and Sindralik, only to meet his tragic end. Both he and Sindralik were crushed beneath a fallen pillar, the Chosen One destroyed by his own actions, his own rage. But the recordings didn't stop there. Darth Sidious appeared on the screen, entering the Jedi Temple in search of Anakin's body. His dark presence filled the room as he searched in vain, knowing full well that Anakin's body could not be recovered. The realization hit hard. Anakin was gone, and Sidious was now free to carry out his dark plans without his once loyal apprentice. The temple was a place of devastation, but Yoda and Obi-Wan knew there was more to discover. They continued their investigation, and as they explored the lower levels, they uncovered a hidden truth. Secret underground passages in the archives had been opened. These tunnels had once been used to smuggle Jedi away from danger, and now they held the key to the survivors' escape. Yoda and Obi-Wan, determined to find those who had managed to survive the Purge, descended into the shadows of the underground. The air was thick with uncertainty as they made their way through the dark corridors, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Soon they reached the refuge, a hidden sanctuary where the survivors had gathered. As they approached, a voice came from the shadows, stopping them in their tracks. "Stop!" It was a voice both familiar and filled with authority. A figure emerged from the darkness. It was Shakti, the last of the Temple Guardians. She had taken it upon herself to protect the surviving Jedi. Obi-Wan and Yoda took off their hoods, revealing themselves to the Jedi Master. Shakti's face softened with relief as she recognized them. "Master Yoda, Obi-Wan," Shakti said, her voice filled with a sense of calm. "You survived." Obi-Wan nodded, a somber smile crossing his face. "We're glad to see you too, Shakti. We feared the worst." Shakti's expression grew more serious, and she explained what had happened to all survivors. "Around 400 Jedi are here, younglings, knights, and masters. They are all safe for now, but we can't stay here forever. We need a way of planet." Yoda's mind immediately went to Bail Organa. With Obi-Wan's help, they had been able to make contact with the Senator of Alderaan. Bail, ever loyal to the Jedi, had agreed to assist in their escape. Obi-Wan spoke up. "We've contacted Bail. He'll be providing us with ships to evacuate the survivors." Shakti nodded, relieved that a plan was in place. "Then we will make it to Polis Massa. It's a remote location, but it will serve as a safe haven for the time being." The 400 Jedi, the survivors of the Jedi Temple Purge, were soon on their way, with Bail Organa's ships arriving just in time to evacuate them. Yoda, Obi-Wan, Shakti, Tera Sinube, and Jocasta Nu, the Jedi Masters who had survived the onslaught, led the effort, making sure that the younglings and those who could not defend themselves were safely aboard. Soon, the remaining Jedi found refuge on Polis Massa, the same desolate moon where Obi-Wan and Yoda had first reunited. The survivors, having escaped the immediate threat of the clones, now had time to regroup and plan for what was to come. Though the galaxy had fallen into darkness, the Jedi were not gone. They would continue their fight, but it would be a long and dangerous road ahead. The Jedi Order had been shattered, but as long as the survivors remained, hope was not completely lost. With the Jedi Temple Purge behind them, the survivors of the Jedi Order gathered on the desolate moon of Polis Massa. Though many Jedi had perished, against all odds, around 400 had survived, thanks to the efforts of Shakti, Tera Sinube, and Jocasta Nu, who had led them into the secret tunnels beneath the temple. Now the remaining Jedi Elders sat in deep discussion, knowing that the fate of the Jedi Order rested in their hands. Grandmaster Yoda, the wisest and most powerful Jedi still alive. Shaak-Ti, a warrior and strategist who had fought furiously in the temple. Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of the most skilled Jedi of his generation. Terrace Anube, the Elder Master, wise and deeply connected to the Jedi way. And Jocasta Nu, the guardian of the Jedi knowledge, keeper of the archives. The room was filled with a heavy silence as the Jedi proceeded with everything that had happened. The Republic was crumbling, and the Sith had finally revealed themselves in full. The loss of Anakin Skywalker, one thing was clear. Darth Sidious had lost his greatest weapon. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, the Jedi's greatest warrior, had perished in the temple. The Sith Lord had intended to mold him into his apprentice, to be his enforcer in the shadows, but now that future was gone. Obi-Wan clenched his fists. Sidious planned to turn Anakin into his pawn. Without him, he's weaker than he expected to be. Shaak-Ti nodded. He has no apprentice now. If we strike swiftly, he won't have time to find another. We must act before he solidifies his power. Yoda closed his eyes, deeply contemplating the path before them. Then his voice broke the silence. Shrouded in darkness, the galaxy has become. If act we do not, forever lost, hope will be. Obi-Wan looked at him with determination. If Sidious isn't stopped, the Republic, whatever is left of it, will fall under his complete control. Jocasta Nu folded her hands. An opportunity like this may never come again. If the three of you go together, you stand a better chance than if one of you faces him alone. Terrace Anube exhales, but fail. Then there will be no one left to stop him. Shaak-Ti places her hand on the table. That's why we can't fail. Yoda opened his eyes, his decision made. Go to Coruscant, we must. The Sith, end them now, we will. With the decision made, the Jedi wasted no time. Bail Organa, their last true ally in the Senate, agreed to help them return to Coruscant in secret. Before their departure, Jocasta Nu and Terrace Anube remained behind, their duty now to protect and guide the remaining Jedi before they left. Anube placed a gentle hand on Obi-Wan's shoulder. The Force is with you, Obi-Wan. It always has been. May it guide you to victory. Jocasta Nu gave Shaak-Ti a knowing look. If this is the end, make sure that it is the end of the Sith, not the Jedi. Shaak-Ti nodded. We will see this through. And with that, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Shaak-Ti boarded Bail Organa's ship, heading straight into the heart of darkness. The final battle against the Darth Sidious was about to begin. As Bail Organa's ship soared toward Coruscant, the Jedi prepared for what could be their final battle. Yoda, Shaak-Ti, and Obi-Wan Kenobi sat in quiet meditation, feeling the currents of the Force swirl around them. But Yoda, despite agreeing to this mission, had his own faults. Alone, face Sidious I must. Shaak-Ti opened her eyes, exchanging a glance with Obi-Wan. She had expected Yoda to say this, but before she could speak, Obi-Wan firmly shook his head. No, Master Yoda, we're in this together. The small Jedi Master turned toward Obi-Wan, his expression undreadable. Sidious strong he is, overwhelming his power may be. If we fail, we do. Then we fail together, Obi-Wan cut him off, his voice filled with conviction. But we won't fail. You saw what he did to the Republic, what he did to Anakin. He is the greatest threat we've ever faced. If we divide our strength now, we'll be giving him exactly what he wants. Shaak-Ti nodded. Obi-Wan is right. If we attack together, we stand a chance. We won't let you face him alone, Master Yoda. Yoda looked at both of them, deeply considering their words. Then he closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. After a long moment, he finally spoke. Together, we face him. Shaak-Ti and Obi-Wan exchanged determined looks. The Jedi had been scattered, broken, but now together. They would now take the fight to the Sith. Bail Organa turned in his seat, addressing the Jedi. Palpatine will be expecting resistance, but he won't be expecting you three together. Shaak-Ti folded her arms. We'll have to strike fast. If we can take him out now, the galaxy still has a chance. Obi-Wan sighed. If we can't, he didn't finish the sentence. Yoda opened his eyes. Then end the Jedi Order will. Bail nodded grimly. We're approaching Coruscant now. Whatever happens, may the Force be with you. As the ship descended toward the capital of the crumbling Republic, the three Jedi Masters prepared themselves. Obi-Wan stood near the viewpoint, watching the city below. Smoke still rose from the Jedi Temple. The once proud symbol of peace was now reduced to a battlefield. Shaak-Ti placed a hand on her lightsaber hilt. Are we truly ready for this? Obi-Wan exhaled. Before we confront Sidious, I need to see Padme. Shaak-Ti raised an eyebrow. Why? Obi-Wan turned to face her. She needs to know the truth about Anakin and about what's happening to the Republic, and she needs to be ready, because when Sidious falls, the Republic must survive. Yoda, sitting nearby with his eyes closed in meditation, slowly opened them and nodded. Wise, this is. Much still rests on her. Bail Organa, piloting the ship, sighed, and will drop you off at her apartment. I have to go to the Senate. Palpatine has called for an emergency session. If I don't attend, he'll be suspecting something. Shakti crossed her arms. Then we don't have much time. The doors to Padme Amidala's apartment slid open, revealing the senator in a flowing gown, preparing to leave for the Senate. She turned, her eyes widening in shock as Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Shakti entered. Obi-Wan? What's going on? What happened? Obi-Wan took a deep breath. Padme, we need to talk. A great tragedy has occurred. Padme's brow furrowed in concern. Where's Anakin? Obi-Wan hesitated, then spoke softly. Anakin is dead. Padme took a step back, shaking her head. No, that's impossible. Obi-Wan's voice remained steady. Padme, please listen. The Jedi were betrayed. The clones, our own troops, turned against us. They executed Order 66, killing Jedi all across the galaxy. And Anakin, he looked away, pained. He was part of it. Padme gasped, her hands trembling. No, he wouldn't. Shakti stepped forward. He turned to the dark side. Padme, he attacked the Jedi Temple alongside the clones. We fought him. He was no longer the Anakin you knew. Padme covered her mouth in horror. You're lying. Obi-Wan shook his head. I saw it with my own eyes. The temple was burning. The younglings, the masters, he cut them down without hesitation. Padme's eyes filled with tears. And then how did he... Obi-Wan exhaled. He fought Shakti and Sindralik. They overwhelmed him. In the end, he and Sindralik were crushed by a collapsing pillar. Padme collapsed onto the nearby couch, silent. Obi-Wan knelt beside her, his voice softer. I know this is painful, but you need to understand. Palpatine, Darth Sidious, orchestrated everything. He is the Sith Lord who has been manipulating the Republic from the beginning. Padme wiped her eyes, trying to steady herself. And now what? Obi-Wan straightened. Now we stop him. But when we do, the Republic will need someone to step in and take control before chaos erupts. That's where you come in. Padme stared at him. Me? Obi-Wan nodded. You still have influence. Gather a delegation of 2,000, the senators who stand against Palpatine. When we take him down, you must act immediately. Secure the Senate. Ensure that the Republic does not fall into disorder. The galaxy cannot afford to lose everything. Padme took a shaky breath. I understand. Obi-Wan stood, glancing at her closely for the first time since arriving. His expression shifted as he noticed the way she held her stomach. The subtle curve that had not been there before. His eyes widened slightly. Padme, are the children's Anakins? Padme hesitated, then slowly nodded. Yes. Obi-Wan exhaled, looking toward Yoda. The Grand Master met his gaze and gave the slightest nod, silently acknowledging what this meant. Shakti broke the silence. The Senate meeting is about to start. We need to go. Obi-Wan turned back to Padme. Be ready. Everything changes after today. Padme swallowed hard and nodded. I will. The Jedi turned and left, heading toward their final battle. Behind them, Padme sat in silence, her mind racing. She had lost everything, and yet the Republic still had a chance. Padme Amidala entered the vast halls of the Senate chamber, her heart pounding. All around her, senators whispered in confusion, some in excitement, others in fear. The emergency session had been called abruptly, and the galaxy was about to change forever. She took her seat among the delegation of 2,000, exchanging wary glances with Bail Organa and Mon Mothma. The massive pod at the center of the chamber rose, and Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, his face now twisted and scarred, addressed the gathered senators. The Jedi Rebellion has been foiled, his voice boomed, carried by the chamber's amplifiers. The treacherous Jedi attempted to overthrow the Republic, but they have been crushed, and in order to ensure peace, stability, and security, I proclaim that the Republic will be reformed into the first galactic empire. A roar of applause erupted from many senators, while others sat in stunned silence. Some, like Padme and Bail Organa, barely contained their horror. So this is how liberty dies, Padme whispered, a voice barely audible over the cheers, with thunderous applause. As Palpatine continued his speech, declaring himself emperor and announcing the dawn of a new era, Padme clenched her fists. She had to be strong. She had to be ready. The Republic still had a chance. While Palpatine stood before the Senate, 3 Jedi silently moved through the dark corridors of the Senate building, making their way to his office. "Remember, our greatest advantage is that he does not expect us," Obi-Wan whispered. "Deceive him, we must," Yoda added. "But if he faces me alone, let him." Shaak Ti nodded. "We need the element of surprise. If he senses us all, he will not underestimate the threat." As Yoda, Obi-Wan and Shaak Ti stepped in a dimly lit office of Chancellor, now Emperor Palpatine, the weight of the past battle was immediately apparent. The large panoramic window that once overlooked the Senate district was still shattered, the edges jagged and scorched from the intense duel that had taken place. The air carried the faint scent of burnt flesh and ozone, remnants of ignited lightsabers and the brutal slaughter that had occurred here just hours ago. The bodies of Masters Kit Fisto, Agen Kolar, and Sazin still laid on the cold floor, lifeless and unmoved. Their expressions were frozen in shock and pain, a grim reminder of how swiftly Sidious had torn through the Jedi Order's finest warriors. Obi-Wan swallowed hard at the sight. He had known these masters. They were supposed to be among the strongest, and yet they hadn't stood a chance. "A battlefield just remains," Yoda murmured, his ears dropping slightly. Shaak Ti knelt beside Kit Fisto's lifeless form, gently closing his eyes with a solemn hand. "We must make sure we do not meet the same fate," she whispered. Obi-Wan exhaled, refocusing. "Then let's prepare." The plan was simple: deception. Sidious would return here once the Senate hearing was complete, likely bask in his victory and solidify his rule. But when he entered, he would only sense one Jedi's presence: Yoda's. The Grand Master would wait outside the shattered window, clinging to the edge of the building with the Force, hiding from Sidious's immediate perception. Obi-Wan and Shaak Ti, meanwhile, would conceal themselves within the room, Shaak Ti behind the Emperor's massive throne, Obi-Wan in the shadowed corner of the chamber, where the lighting had been damaged in the previous fight. Once Sidious entered, Yoda would wait for the right moment. Then, he would leap in, and the battle would begin, the calm before the storm. With the preparations complete, silence filled the room. Shaak Ti closed her eyes, steadying her breath. Obi-Wan tightened his grip on his lightsaber. Yoda remained motionless, outside, blending into the Force itself. They would only have one chance, and they would not fail. The Senate hearing was over. The cheers and applause from the manipulated senators faded as Supreme Chancellor, no, Emperor Palpatine's floating pod retracted back into his office. The once hidden Sith Lord stepped out onto the ruined battlefield of his own making, his dark robes bellowing as he surveyed the wreckage of his past fight. He paused. Something was off. Sidious narrowed his eyes. He could feel Yoda's presence, but something else lingered in the air, just beyond his perception. A faint echo in the Force, a presence being carefully masked. "Reveal yourself, my little green friend," he hissed, his voice laced with malice. From outside the shattered window, Yoda launched forward, his emerald lightsaber igniting with a snap hiss. The small Jedi Grandmaster spun in midair, bringing his blade down in a swift, precise strike. Sidious reacted instantly, his own crimson saber springing to life as he blocked the attack. But the moment he made contact, his free hand surged with dark energy, and he lashed out with Force lightning. The crackling electricity struck Yoda squarely in the chest, sending the Grandmaster skidding backward across the floor. He grunted, but quickly regained his footing. Sidious cackled, his yellow eyes gleaming. "Your arrogance blinds you, Master Yoda." But the Sith Lord barely had time to savor his attack before Yoda responded with an overwhelming Force push. The sheer power of it sent Sidious flying backward, tumbling across the floor. He barely managed to twist in midair and regain his footing, snarling. Realizing he was now at a disadvantage, Sidious turned to flee. As he had in the original timeline, he dashed toward the Senate chamber, but Yoda was faster. The Jedi Master leaped in front of him, blocking his path, his saber humming with power. "If so powerful you are, why leave?" Yoda challenged, his gaze unwavering. Sidious sneered, his fingers twitching around the hilt of his lightsaber. He twirled the blade, stepping forward with a deadly strike. Yoda met it head-on, and the duel erupted into a storm of flashing green and red, the hum and clash of lightsabers echoing through the ruined office. The battle was fast, intense. Yoda's speed and agility countered by Sidious' raw aggressive power. The duel between Yoda and Sidious raged on, their blades flashing through the darkness of the ruined office. The battle had reached a fever pitch. Yoda's mastery of Form 4 against the raw, vicious power of the Sith Lord. Then, the moment came. Obi-Wan and Shakti revealed themselves, their brutal lightsabers ignited in unison. They lunged at Sidious, pressing the attack from behind. Sidious snarled, his Sith instincts kicking in. With a flick of his wrist, he reached toward an ornate pot resting atop a shattered pillar. The Force yanked it open, revealing a hidden lightsaber hilt, his backup weapon. With lightning speed, the crimson blade shot from the pot, spinning towards Obi-Wan's head. Kenobi barely reacted in time, ducking as the saber whizzed past him, missing his face by the mere inches. With a swift motion, Sidious caught the weapon in midair and ignited it fully. Now, the Sith Emperor wielded two lightsabers, a wicked grin spread across his face. Fools! You really think you stand a chance against the power of the dark side? With both weapons ignited, he became an even greater force of destruction. His own two sabers twirled and struck in rapid succession, his offensive doubling in intensity. Yoda was forced back, Obi-Wan struggled to keep up, and Shakti narrowly dodged a deadly strike. Now, the battle was beyond anything any of them had ever experienced. Despite the overwhelming power of the Sith Lord, the Jedi were now more determined than ever. They knew this was their only chance to end the darkness before they consumed the galaxy. Sidious, now wielding two sabers, attacked relentlessly, his strikes fueled by rage and raw dark-side energy. But the Jedi countered with skill, precision, and unity. Shakti, a true master of Form 2 Makashi, danced around Sidious' attacks with elegance and precision. Every strike she delivered was calculated, aimed at exposing the smallest weakness in his technique. She flowed like water, her blade cutting through the air with deadly accuracy. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the undisputed master of Form 3 Sarisu, became an unbreakable wall. His saber moved in tight, efficient motions, deflecting every brutal strike from Sidious unleashed. No matter how fast or aggressive the Sith Lord attacked, Obi-Wan countered with perfect defense, frustrating his opponent. And then there was Yoda, the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, wielding Form 4 Ataru. With a blur of green light, he leaped through the air, flipping and twisting over Sidious, striking from impressive angles. With each acrobatic movement, his saber became a whirlwind, striking fast and hard, keeping Sidious on edge. The battle was a perfect blend of three masters: Shakti's precision, Obi-Wan's defense, and Yoda's speed. For the first time, the Dark Lord of the Sith was being pushed back. Sidious was far from finished. Despite the combined might of the Jedi, he still fought with relentless fury, determined to defeat them and solidify his grip on the galaxy. With a flick of his wrist, Sidious struck at Shakti with both sabers, sending her back. The impact of the strike forced her to retreat, only for Sidious to follow up with a brutal force push, slamming her into the wall. She fell, temporarily dazed, her lightsaber sliding from her grasp. Now it was just Sidious, Yoda, and Obi-Wan in the fight. Sidious, sensing his opportunity, launched a powerful kick at Obi-Wan, knocking him back. Without hesitation, he unleashed his signature Force Lightning at Obi-Wan, stunning him. Kenobi collapsed for a moment, struggling to regain his bearings, but the Sith Lord's power would not last long against the Jedi's resolve. With Obi-Wan stunned, Yoda pressed on, determined to protect his allies and end this conflict. Sidious and Yoda now stood locked in a fierce one-on-one battle. Dark Lord, with a twisted grin on his face, summoned a supercharged burst of lightning that crackled through the air, streaking toward Yoda. The Grand Master stretched out his hands, using all his power to block and absorb the searing energy. The force of it nearly pushed him into his knees, but Yoda's resolve held firm. Summoning every ounce of his strength, Yoda turned the tide, reflecting the lightning back to Sidious with incredible force. The burst of energy sent the Sith Lord crashing against the wall, momentarily stunned, but Sidious was quick to recover. As Yoda pressed forward, attacking with swift and powerful strikes, Sidious defended with his dark energy, parrying Yoda's lightsaber with remarkable precision. The two clashed, each blow echoing through the room as the fight intensified. Just as Yoda was about to strike a decisive blow, Shakti, back on her feet, rushed towards Sidious, determined to help her comrades. However, Sidious sensed her coming, and with a cruel smile, pushed Yoda away with a force wave, creating enough distance to unleash another devastating force lightning at Shakti. The bolt slammed into her chest, sending her flying to the ground, unconscious and battered. Sidious moved it quickly, his saber raised, ready to strike. The Dark Lord aimed directly for Shakti, intending to end her life. But at her last moment, Obi-Wan, having recovered from his stun, leapt forward and intercepted the strike, his lightsaber deflecting Sidious's blade. The sheer force of Obi-Wan's defense saved Shakti, who lay motionless on the ground, vulnerable. The Jedi now stood side by side, unwavering in the face of evil, determined to protect the galaxy from the Sith's tyranny. But with Sidious growling angry, the battle was far from over. The battle had reached its peak, each blow resonating like the clash of titans in the heart of the Senate building. Sidious, ever cunning and relentless, could feel his victory slipping from his grasp. The Jedi had held the ground far longer than he expected, each strike from Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Shakti chipping away at the facade of his power. His hatred burned brighter, feeding his dark energy, but the Jedi stood undeterred. Yoda, his lightsaber humming with fury, charged once again towards Sidious. He moved with the speed and agility that only the Grand Master could muster, striking with precision. Sidious, now forced to defend in earnest, parried the blows with vicious speed, his twin lightsabers moving in a deadly dance of their own. But Yoda's relentless assault was wearing him down. His breath became more ragged, his stance less sure. Yet still, Sidious was far from defeated. Obi-Wan, his arm still aching from the earlier strike, had rejoined the fray, his lightsaber moving with the grace of a master. He fought with the precision and calculated moves that defined Form 3. His defense was impeccable, but the sheer fury of Sidious' attacks were starting to wear him down. His saber barely blocked another brutal strike from the Sith Lord's second blade, and in the midst of the clash, Sidious saw his chance. With a sudden powerful strike, Sidious swung one of his blades in an arc that Obi-Wan barely managed to parry. The force of the blow was so great that it knocked Obi-Wan off the balance. In that instant, Sidious thrust forward with his second blade, catching Obi-Wan off guard. The blade sliced clean through Obi-Wan's arm, severing it at the shoulder. A searing pain shot through Obi-Wan's body, and he let out a sharp cry of anguish as he fell back. Obi-Wan collapsed to his knees, clutching the stump of his arm. But even in his pain, he didn't surrender. He glared up at Sidious, defiance burning in his eyes. "You will not win," Obi-Wan whispered, the words barely audible through the agony. Sidious sneered, stepping close to deliver the final blow. Before he could act, a sudden roar of energy surged toward him. Yoda, his face etched with deep concentration and fury, launched himself at Sidious with one final explosive assault. Dark lightning crackled around Sidious as he raised his hands to block Yoda's oncoming strike. But it was too late. Yoda slammed into Sidious with the full force of his mastery, his blade striking with the power of 1,000 storms. But Sidious was not so easily defeated. With an unexpected move, he conjured a massive surge of dark energy, pushing Yoda back with such force that the Jedi Master was sent tumbling across the room. Yoda's lightsaber flew from his grasp as he slammed into the wall with a sickening thud. With Obi-Wan still reeling from his injury and Yoda momentarily disoriented, Sidious turned his attention to Shakti. She had staggered back to her feet, determined to join the fray once more. Sidious saw the perfect opportunity. With a swift slash of his lightsaber, he caught Shakti off guard, and with a cry of anguish, she fell to the ground, her lightsaber slipping from her grasp. The blow had been fatal. Obi-Wan's eyes widened in horror as Shakti's body crumpled. His resolve, despite the pain, hardened. He could not let this be the end. For all their sacrifices, for all the Jedi that had fallen, they could not allow Sidious to win. With a primal roar, Obi-Wan pushed himself to his feet, clutching his bleeding stump, and drove into the fight once more. He fought with sheer willpower, his lightsaber moving in graceful arcs. Through he was slower, weaker than before, yet still he fought. He had to fight. Sidious spun to face Obi-Wan, his twin sabers flaring to life with the malicious intent that had defined his reign. "You are no match for me, Jedi," Sidious hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "You'll never rule the galaxy," Obi-Wan spat, his face twisted in pain and defiance. The two clashed once more, their sabers sparkling as they met in the center of the room. Sidious fully fueled his attacks, but Obi-Wan held strong. Despite his injury, Yoda, recovering quickly from the blow, returned to his feet, his resolve unshaken. He reached out with the Force, his eyes locked on Sidious. There would be no turning back now. "Yoda and Obi-Wan, together! pressed their attack. The room became a blur of flashing lightsabers as the battle raged on, their movements almost too fast to follow. Sidious blocked, parried, and countered with precision, but he was beginning to tire. His overconfidence faltered in the face of the Jedi's unity. Then, with a final decisive moment, Yoda and Obi-Wan combined their efforts. Obi-Wan distracted Sidious with a series of sharp strikes, while Yoda, moving like a blur, came in from behind. Sidious turned just in time to block, but the sheer speed of the attack was too much. Yoda's lightsaber found its mark, a lethal blow across Sidious's chest, sending the Sith Lord stumbling back. He fell to the ground, his twin sabers skittering across the floor. For a brief moment, there was silence. The room was filled with the sounds of ragged breathing, the Jedi standing tall despite their pain, the body of Shakti lying motionless in the corner. Sidious, once so confident, was now defeated. His dark aura began to dissipate, the Sith Lord's life force fading away as his body lay still. But victory came at a price. Obi-Wan, barely able to stand, leaned heavily on his remaining arm, his chest heavy with exhaustion and pain, his vision blurred. Yoda stood beside him, his face grim. The battle had ended, but the cost had been great. Shakti was gone. They had won, but at what cost? Rest in peace, my friend, Obi-Wan whispered, looking towards Shakti's fallen body. Yoda said nothing, but his eyes reflected a shared sorrow. They had saved the galaxy from the darkness, but in doing so, had lost more than they could bear. The war was over. The Sith were defeated, but the Jedi were no more. The Republic was lost. Only the remembrance of their sacrifice remained, and in the end, it would be up to those who survived to rebuild what had been broken. In the silence that followed, Yoda and Obi-Wan turned away from the wreckage of the Senate room, knowing that their battle was only one part of a much larger fight. The galaxy would have to heal, but for now, all they could do was honor the fallen and carry on the legacy of the Jedi. But their work was not yet done. Obi-Wan, his arm still bleeding, turned to Yoda. "We must gather the proof," he said through clenched teeth, his voice still strong despite the pain. Yoda nodded solemnly, his eyes scanning the room. They moved quickly, collecting data recordings from Sidious's office, evidence of his treacherous actions and his brutal murder of the Jedi who had stood against him. They gathered footage of the previous Jedi, Kit Fisto, Agen Collar, and Saesee Tiin, and of their own battle against the Sith Lord. The proof would expose the truth of Sidious's reign, his manipulation of the Senate, and his dark design for the galaxy. Once they had gathered all the evidence they could gather, Obi-Wan and Yoda made their way to the Senate chamber, where the truth would finally be revealed. They uploaded the recordings to the Senate systems, and within moments, the images of Sidious's treachery spread throughout the hall. The senators who had been under Sidious's thumb for so long were now forced to confront the reality of the Sith Lord's betrayal. The Senate erupted in chaos, but amidst the turmoil, a delegation of 2,000 senators stepped forward. They immediately moved to reinstate the Republic, casting aside the Sith influence that had corrupted their government for so long. Bail Organa, a figure of hope and resistance, was elected as Chancellor, while Padme Amidala, who had fought for peace and justice throughout the war, became co-Chancellor. The Republic was restored, but it was a Republic reborn from the ashes of its former self. It would be different now, stronger, more transparent. No longer could the dark forces of corruption and manipulation rule unchecked. With Sidious's defeat and the Republic set on a new path, the remaining Jedi returned to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Though they had won the war, they would not remain as a part of the Republic that had once been their home. The galaxy had changed too much, and so had they. It would be time for the Jedi to stand independent. The Jedi Temple was rebuilt, standing as a symbol of hope for the galaxy's future. The remaining Jedi, about 500 strong, including Obi-Wan, Yoda, Quinlan Vos, Luminara Unduli, Coleman Kaj, Oprah Ancesis, Terra Sinube, Joe Castanu, Ahsoka Tano, and others who had survived the Purge of Order 66, returned to their sacred home. The Jedi Order would no longer be a tool of the Republic, but a guiding force for peace and justice, watching over the galaxy from the shadows. The Order, though small, was resilient and powerful. They would rebuild and learn from the mistakes of the past. The cityscape of Coruscant gleamed under the twin moons, its vast towers illuminated by the celebrations taking place below. The people of the Republic, once shackled by war, fear, and manipulation, now stood united in triumph. The Clone Wars had ended, the Sith had fallen, and the first time in years, hope burned bright in the hearts of the galaxy's people. In the Grand Senate Hall, where once deception and tyranny had festered, a new beginning was taking shape. At the center of the chamber stood Bail Organa, newly appointed Chancellor, and at his side Padme Amidala, the co-Chancellor and the voice of peace. They addressed the countless beings gathered in the Senate and beyond, the words broadcasted to every system, every world. "The war is over," Bail declared, his voice steady, filled with the weight of history. "No longer will we live under the shadow of deception. The Republic stands free once more, and today we honor those who have fought for its survival. Today we honor the Jedi and the clones." A wave of applause and cheers erupted through the hall and beyond. No longer were the Jedi exiles. No longer were they fugitives. They were heroes once again. Among them, Obi-Wan Kenobi stood with Satine Kryze at his side, her hand in his, their long journey of separation finally over. Yoda stood with Ahsoka and the surviving Jedi, their presence a testament to resilience. Jo Castanew, with tears in her aged eyes, looked out at the reborn Republic, knowing that the knowledge of the Jedi Order had not perished. And in the center of it all, Padme knelt beside two small children, Luke and Leia. They would never know the dark rule of the Sith, nor grow in the shadows of war. They would inherit a republic built on truth, guided by those who fought for it. As fireworks painted the sky above Coruscant, Obi-Wan turned to Yoda. "It feels different this time," he softly said. Yoda nodded, his wise gaze reflecting the light of the celebrations. "Learn from the past, we must. Watch over the future, we will. The Republic would stand, but the Jedi would not be its soldiers. They would be its guardians, independent and wise, watching from the shadows, ensuring that tyranny never again took root." And so, the night stretched on, the cheers of the galaxy echoing across the stars. A new age began, not one of war, but of peace, of hope, of a republic reborn. And so, the Jedi rose, once more, not as warriors of the Republic, but as keepers of the light, of the peace, eternal and unyielding. And that is it for What If Anakin Skywalker Died during the Jedi Temple Purge. Wow. I mean, I had a lot of fun creating this What If. I think this is a definitely big step, I guess, forward from the previous What If. The previous What If, now what's interesting is that the previous What If had two parts, and altogether those two parts add up to, what, like 50 minutes or something? This What If alone is like, the whole video is like an hour long, right? So this What If is one part and it's way longer than the previous one of two parts. This also, you know, took longer to write. It's a longer one. This is like 9,500 words. So yeah, but I had so much fun creating this What If. And I mean, making it was hard because I'm sick and I can just like uncontrollably I uncontrollably cough all the time. So I had to make huge breaks between recording and all of that. But I had to push through because I've not posted in, what, like 11 days now, or 10 days. So I wanted to get it out. This What If was also ready yesterday, but if you saw my community post, I wanted to make it that extra bit better, and I aim to improve with every What If I make. So by adding some awesome sound effects to this What If, I think it really made the What If just so much better. Plus I added more variety to the music in the What If. So yeah, this is definitely an improvement from the previous two-part What If. I, of course, hope you guys enjoy this What If. I mean, I enjoyed it very much. I think it's a great What If. So long, but yeah, I hope you guys are still here or at this time in the video. Yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed, make sure to like it, subscribe, and turn your notifications on to be notified about next time I post a Star Wars What If. I am aiming for posting one every Sunday. I was going to post one every Sunday, but you know, the whole sick thing happened. So, yeah, expect the next one to be released on Sunday, and I will be releasing one every Sunday. Very hopeful of that. And yeah, I mean, subscribe. We're aiming for, I guess we're aiming for 500 subscribers right now. I mean, the previous two What Ifs earned us so much. They did so good, and I just want to thank for the support again. Just great support. And yeah, like the video so that I know, you know, that you guys enjoyed it. I take suggestions down below, so comment down below if you have any suggestions for What Ifs I should make. Or if you have any suggestions for stuff I can improve in these What Ifs. Anything you would like me to add, what you thought about this What If, what you liked and didn't like about it, Yeah, I take really any feedback. I appreciate any feedback. Also, remember to join our Discord server. The link's in the description. We're trying to build up our community. And if you want to support the channel and get exclusive perks, consider joining our Patreon. Links in the description. And yeah, once again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this What If just as much as I did. An hour long. Wow. Sound effects are beautiful, I think. So, yeah, I appreciate any feedback, as I said. Thank you so much for watching. This is the Way I'm the Forced Review. Until then, I will see you next time. Hey, you didn't watch it? Well, check out the video on the left side of the screen, which is specifically recommended for you, or check out the playlist on the right of the screen, which contains similar videos to this one, made by me, of course. Hey, remember, subscribe.